What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Schreckbein, joined always by my man in the corner, producer Nick Belsky. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they approach their third preseason game, head to Detroit for a matchup that will likely decide the fate of their quarterback situation moving into the regular season. Meanwhile, another surprise guest shows up at practice. We'll dive into it. A rookie might be headed to IR. We'll dive into that. And, well, everybody wants to know, are the Pittsburgh Steelers going to start Russell Wilson? Are they going to start Justin Fields? Should they get rid of one of these quarterbacks? And what decides the outcome of this quarterback competition? We'll dive into it all. Plus, as we do every single day, we will answer all of your questions. So make sure that you toss them into the chat. Nick, it's a beautiful one here in the Berg. I'm excited to get going. I won't lie to you. Lunch, I had some Peace Love Little Donuts. So we're a little full, a little sluggish, but we're getting through this afternoon. How you feeling, my friend?
I'm not far off from you on that one. For lunch, I had Skittles and beef jerky, so certainly not part of a balanced diet.
I think the older you get, the more you realize how
bad of an idea that is.
It's a bad idea, definitely. But beef jerky, man, beef jerky is just the universal. It's a snack, and as an adult, you should probably eat it more than we should. It's definitely killing us slowly, but I mean, you read the label. Outside of a ton of sodium, gets the job done. Gets the job done, does what you need to do.
Yeah, I mean, we went down to the beach a couple weeks ago, so we loaded up on beef jerky because that's a long drive. And when there's leftovers and you don't really feel like making a meal, it's right there. It smells good. It tastes good. It's not great for you, but I'm not hungry now, so it got the job done.
Exactly. Me and Mike DeFabo, shout out Mike DeFabo, the Athletic. We went a couple of weeks last season where it was just beef jerky central. One of us had it in our backpack at all time. Let's dive into some Pittsburgh Steelers news and notes. We got some good ones. I guess one good one some not so good one, but we'll dive into both of them. What do you got today?
Yeah, one of the best storylines to follow along with during training camp and now in regular practices is Mike Tomlin always has a guest. I mean, when I was up there, it was Brett Michaels. We saw him go over to Dino's and interact with the fans and got Mike Tomlin out. Today, it was former Dallas Cowboys head coach and longtime offensive coordinator Jason Garrett on the practice field. Now, this one isn't as much of a celebrity sighting, but it is certainly interesting that the former head coach of the NFL's Dallas Cowboys is in participation and is in the South Side.
Yeah, that one, look at JJ Watt. There's reasons to be there. You could speculate about how cool it would be for a return and get him to Pittsburgh. It would be awesome. Doesn't matter where he's going. Play with TJ, blah, blah, blah. Jason Garrett doesn't make much sense to me. Unless there's a story that NBC Sports is running on the Steelers quarterback situation or Mike Tomlin or somebody, I just don't know why he's there. And to be honest with you, the game is in Detroit. So it's not like, and I don't know if it's even going to be on NBC. I have no idea what channel the game is. I didn't even check. But it doesn't make much sense for anybody to be in Pittsburgh when the game is not in Pittsburgh. So Jason Garrett being there was definitely a bit of a surprise today. Was checking out pretty much the entire offense. Obviously talked to Mike Tomlin a little bit. I don't know, man. That one struck me. At the other side of that, though, like for everybody who wants to speculate, like, oh, big eye emoji and this is it. Maybe they're adding to the offensive staff. I just don't know where you're adding somebody. Like you have Arthur Smith, longtime offensive coordinator, successful offensive coordinator in the NFL. You have Tom Arth, who you just hired as a quarterbacks coach, and that is Jason Garrett's background is offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach because he played quarterback in the NFL and in the CFL. And you still have Mike Sullivan, who's just kind of like a floater. So where would you even hire this guy? What position? Like you just bringing people on to say, hey, you know what? We might as well just have another guy here. Who cares? I don't know. This one got me a little bit. I still think I'm dumbfounded by the situation. I don't know why, but it's a curious one for him to be in Pittsburgh for sure.
Yeah, it's just another one of those. Mike Tomlin attracts all types of types, and Garrett wanted to get a up close and personal look at this year's Steelers.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know why. Like it just, would you ever expect to, I mean, you expect Mike Tomlin to be friends with everybody, but Jason Garrett's one that
didn't have it on my bingo card. No.
Yeah, no, I think that's a strange one, but we'll see. A story drops on Saturday afternoon or Saturday at noon of the Steelers quarterback competition, Mike Tomlin, Cam Hayward, TJ Watt, JJ Watt, so on and so forth. Who knows? Then we have our answer. If not, I don't know. Keep your eyes open because I have a hard time believing Jason Garrett's just showing up because he was passing through Pittsburgh to get to wherever he was going for the weekend.
Let's move over and talk about another piece of news and notes. Steelers insider Ray Fittipaldo was on 93.7 The Fan's morning show earlier today, and he provided an update on wide receiver Roman Wilson, saying, quote, his situation certainly bears watching. Obviously, he's a third-round pick. They're going to carry him on the 53-man roster, but if you're a rookie and you don't play in any preseason games, depending on what else goes on with this roster, I think he's a candidate to start on injured reserve. Roman Wilson on injured reserve, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a massive loss for the Steelers if it happens. He said that he will not play in the third preseason game, but expects to be back eventually. It's just tough. Ankle sprains could last forever. You just don't know how long it's going to be. It's a major loss if he is not out there for the start of the season. And I expected an accumulation period or an acclimation period, of Roman Wilson coming in here, slowly building himself up into the starting lineup or to that backup role behind Calvin Austin, and then continuing to work his way into the mix. This is tough. It's tough for a couple of reasons. For one, now you're going to turn to another guy as a backup, maybe a Scotty Miller on the inside, maybe a Dez Fitzpatrick. It's not ideal. He's missing out on special teams. He's missing out on development. And if the Steelers don't add a Brandon Ayuk or another name out there, you're really looking at a very slim, very, very slim wide receiver depth chart. I would say this, if Roman doesn't start the season on the active roster and the Steelers don't go get a Brandon Ayuk, Juju becomes like very real for this team. And obviously he's real to begin with, but like he becomes a pretty big option for them because he could play the slot and fill that role, especially at the start of the season. And then you can make it work when Roman Wilson does come back without any added pressure to get him up to speed as quickly as possible, because the more time he misses, the longer that acclimation period's got to be when he does come back. I expect this to be a huge loss for the Steelers if it happens.
Yeah, the Steelers took a gamble this offseason. Omar Khan took a gamble this offseason when he traded away Deontay Johnson without really a succession plan in place. And he's still taking a gamble by being in this entanglement with Brandon Ayuk and the San Francisco 49ers instead of going a different direction and trying to fill that hole somewhere else. And a big part of that gamble was, well, at least coming into camp, we have a rookie in Roman Wilson that won a national championship. He's going to come in. We expect him to hit the ground running. He's going to be a rookie. He's going to have his rookie lapses, but they expected him to be a big part of this season. The fact that now he has missed all of training camp and will potentially miss the first 4 weeks of the season if he goes on IR, it is a devastating blow to what their plans were, and it goes a long way in saying their gamble might not have paid off. Again, there's still some stones that need unturned, but as of right now, it's not looking great for what Omar Khan did in the wide receiver room.
Yeah, I agree. It's tough times, and I expect changes to happen. I don't expect the Pittsburgh Steelers to walk into the season with what's going on, but you're dead on. Like, the Steelers could have had an excuse in Roman Wilson to not try and fix a very tough situation, one that didn't turn out the way that they hoped it did. Now that excuse is gone and things look worse, because if you walk into the season with George Pickens, Van Jefferson, Calvin Austin, and a bunch of nobodies behind them, you're in a very, very tough spot if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers. So right now, not looking good. Let's hope for the best. But if it's not, I would expect a name like Juju Smith-Schuster to almost be a definite addition to this roster. If not him, somebody else of his caliber who could play the slot. But I don't expect that to be as it is moving forward. I expect them to add somebody somewhere, because while you're waiting for Roman, you need more help.
Yeah, I agree. And when you look at Juju, I understand that it's underwhelming considering what the conversation has been, but at the same time, for what he does, kind of does fit with Arthur Smith, right? He's a physical receiver that likes to run block, and that's what the Steelers have kind of accumulated throughout the offseason. It might fit the mold, especially if he's a holdover just until Roman Wilson gets back, gets his feet underneath him, and gets into that slot position.
Yeah, 100%. All right, let's move on to the quarterback situation. ESPN's Mike Tannenbaum, which I know the second that I say that name, everybody's going to go, oh, gosh, what are we doing here? But ESPN's Mike Tannenbaum, former New York Jets general manager for 6 years. Remember that. So this guy has made some deals, many of them in the NFL, is trying to push the Pittsburgh Steelers to make a quarterback trade, saying that they should ship Russell Wilson to Minnesota to replace J.J. McCarthy. Quote, unfortunately for Minnesota, history is repeating itself. We go back to 2016, very unfortunate injury. Teddy Bridgewater had a catastrophic injury at practice. Sam Bradford gets traded from the Eagles to the Vikings. So to me, I think a win-win here is to trade Russell Wilson to Minnesota. I think he's a better quarterback than Sam Darnold. That would leave the Pittsburgh Steelers with Justin Fields, Kyle Allen, and our fan favorite John Rice Plumlee as their quarterbacks this season. I'll say this. If the Steelers traded Russell Wilson, which everybody's going to bring up the no trade clause, there's a no trade clause in Russell Wilson's contract, blah, blah, blah. If I'm Mike Tomlin or Omar Khan and I go to Russell Wilson and I say, you have lost the starting quarterback job, Justin Fields is going to be the starter. We do have an option to trade you to Minnesota where you can compete for a starting job there. He's very clearly going to take that opportunity. He's not at 35, 36 years old going to say, you know what? I think I'm just going to give up. I'm going to roll over, and I'm going to let Justin Fields be the starter, and I'll be the backup this season. That doesn't work because you have to. You are Russell Wilson, so you have people around you, enough people who are smart enough in this industry to let you know that you are not going to surpass Justin Fields. It is much easier for Justin Fields to bench you than it is for you to bench Justin Fields this season for the Steelers because Justin Fields has development. Justin Fields is a guy that you are taking a shot on his growth, not a shot on where he is right now. So it's much easier for him to bench you, not you to bench him. He would leave to go to any team where he has a real possibility. On top of that, you're telling me that if you went to Russell Wilson and said, hey, you could go play with Kevin O'Connell, great offensive coordinator and turning out to be a decent head coach, Justin Jefferson, the best wide receiver in the NFL, Jordan Addison, who, if healthy, looks phenomenal as a number 2, TJ Hawkinson, people forget that he's over there, and a pretty good running game and offensive line in front of you. Not a bad situation. So if you're Russell Wilson, you're taking that. The no trade clause doesn't concern me. The Steelers would not trade Russell Wilson, even if he does lose the starting job to Justin Fields. And yes, it could be a win-win where you get to go with Justin and maybe you get a 4th round or 5th round pick for Russell Wilson. I could see that. But a 4th and a 5th round pick is not worth taking a risk. And Russell Wilson, just like Justin Fields, is the guy that, worst case scenario, the Pittsburgh Steelers have somebody to rely on if it doesn't work out with their first option. If Justin Fields goes down, you have Russell Wilson. If Russell Wilson goes down, you have Justin Fields. If Russell Wilson stinks, you have Justin Fields. If Justin Fields is so bad that you have to bench him no matter what, you have Russell Wilson. You need a backup plan. The Pittsburgh Steelers want a backup plan. That's why they added Russell Wilson in the first place. Their thought was not, Russ is going to come in here and he's going to be the guy and maybe we'll get rid of Kenny Pickett immediately. Kenny wanted a trade. They made a trade. They got Justin because they understood that they wanted another option. That was the thing with Russ. They wanted another option. Russ was the best one available, which is a good one, and they made it happen. I think there's literally a 0% chance. Like, I can't stress this hard enough. 0%, it does not matter, chance that Russell Wilson or Justin Fields gets traded this offseason or this season at all, unless the Pittsburgh Steelers start 0-8 and it's over, and by the end of the by the bye week, you're done and you're just making a trade because whatever you're preparing for next season. If that's not the case, which it won't be the case, 0% chance. 0% chance if we're talking realistic. Because obviously if Minnesota comes out and they say, we'll give you a 1st-round pick for Russell Wilson, yeah, you make a trade. But, that would never happen, and the Steelers would never trade one of their quarterbacks the way that it stands today.
Not only that, why would they want to trade Russell Wilson? I understand. Last week wasn't pretty. Are you really going to judge Russell Wilson based on 21 snaps when, as Arthur Smith said on Tuesday, there was a lot of things going wrong on that offense on Saturday, right? We can't put it on one person. He even said with the Broderick Jones first sack of the game, he said, yeah, Broderick made a few mistakes, but the other ones that everybody's putting on Broderick, there were some other things that happened in those plays as well. 21 snaps for Russell Wilson is not enough to make a judgment. And you mentioned it. The Steelers brought him in for a reason. that's not going to turn them away. The calf injury is not going to turn them away. We haven't even gotten to week 1 yet. The fact that this is thrown out there is, again, maybe Minnesota wants another quarterback. Maybe Minnesota wants an upgrade over Sam Darnold this season because they were planning on having it be J.J. McCarthy, and that's a lot of a letdown. But on the Steelers side of this, it makes zero sense, like you mentioned, and there's 0% chance that it's going to happen.
Yeah, there's just, I'm sorry. I don't mean to shut down the cool, and I know that I honestly feel like me back in the day, you bring me back 2 years ago, I'm pushing this idea, trade him to Minnesota, make it happen. I think where we sit here today, there's just nothing in my head that logically understands why that would happen, and it wouldn't happen. And I'm sorry, Minnesota might need a quarterback, but there are many more Sam Darnold stands out there than there are Russell Wilson stands. So I don't think you're going to even win the popularity battle in Minnesota if you bring in Russell Wilson. And I get that, maybe Sam Darnold's not that good. Maybe in week 2, maybe in week 3, you have a different conversation. But for right now, no. And to be honest, there are other names out there. Philadelphia's got a great third quarterback in Tanner McKee. The Tennessee Titans have this guy named Mason Rudolph who might be looking for a starting gig somewhere. Like, there are names that the Minnesota Vikings can call that aren't Russell Wilson that probably make a little bit more sense if they need to come week 2, week 3, something like that. Just not going to happen. All right. Next thing I want to talk about is the quarterback battle, because it is Wednesday. We are headed towards Saturday, which will be the final showing of this quarterback competition. Russell Wilson says he will start, or he will play, He expects all the starters to play. It sounds as if he's the starter. That's what it sounded like if you asked him. The way I look at it is it's very simple. You score a touchdown in this one, I think you won the job. I know it's crazy to say that. I know that there's so much more that goes into it, but if you could lead a touchdown drive, a good one, a very good one, I have a hard time believing that the other person has done enough to surpass you in this quarterback competition. I think that's plain and simple where we stand right here, and it doesn't matter who it is. If Justin goes out there and he scores a touchdown and that offense has some click to it and you're going, ooh, okay, there it is. That's what they've been looking for. That's a massive advantage, Justin Fields. If Russell Wilson goes out there, first drive, scores a touchdown, boom, okay, there it is. That's what we're looking for. Let me ask you this question, because Mark Caboli put it on Twitter, and I thought it was a very good question to ask. If George Pickens gets his pinky toe down on that catch against the Bills, are we even having a conversation right now about if Russ stinks or if the offense is terrible, or are things looking good because Russ at least did something and there was some mojo there, and who knows what would have happened after that?
Yeah, the other part of that was he stood in the pocket and delivered that pass, in a collapsing pocket and delivered that pass, which, listen, yes, I understand it. Russell Wilson has historically been a off-schedule type of quarterback. He can scramble. He's dealing with a calf injury. He can't do that right now. So maybe that's not in his bag of tricks. But on Saturday, he did make that pass. It was a beautiful moon ball to George Pickens, and it looked really good. If he makes that catch, if George Pickens is in, I think there is less discussion, but I still think it's a discussion because this is something we were talking about before last week's game. And yeah, he had a rough game. Yeah, he got sacked a bunch. Yeah, the offense did not really get anything going. 2 first downs and 5 drives is not good. But I do think that we'd still be having the discussion because it's been publicized and emphasized by everybody, including national media, every single day for the past 3 weeks. So I think that even if George Pickens makes that catch, or honestly, even if Mike Tomlin throws out the challenge flag and maybe he gets a favorable call because it's preseason, if that's ruled a catch, I think that it gets a little bit quieter, but I do still think that we're talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, but I do think it's quiet. I think it's much quieter. I don't think that there's the screaming heads of this team sucks, Russ is terrible. Because if it was the other way, like, did you notice that Justin and the offense wasn't that great, but we weren't talking about how it's over and this is done and Justin's the worst quarterback of all time? Russ struggles and Russ stinks, man. It's over. There's nothing there. Move on. Justin Fields. You want to know why? Because Russell Wilson doesn't have the oomph. Russell Wilson doesn't have the escape a crazy sack and make a throw to Des Fitzpatrick that gets everybody on their feet, and Russ has a lot of other things, a lot of very good things. And you just mentioned a couple of them, but Justin brings that magic from time to time that leaves you with the, okay, there's something here. We just got to wait for it. It's okay. I agree with you. I think it'd be quieter. I don't think it'd be quiet, but it'd be quieter where we stand here right now. I do want to address this comment as we go backwards a little bit. They said that about Russell Wilson because Tannenbaum wanted the Steelers to go get Ryan Tannehill to replace him. I did watch that clip. You are right on that one, Thomas. I don't believe Ryan Tannehill is, and maybe you feel differently, but I don't believe Ryan Tannehill is the backup that the Pittsburgh Steelers should be looking for. I mean, I'm not saying Russell Wilson is. I think Justin Fields is. I think Justin Fields is the best backup you could have in the NFL. I mean, that's a crazy good backup quarterback right there. Maybe outside of this guy named Mason Rudolph, but besides that, he's a pretty good backup quarterback. But Ryan Tannehill, I just don't think has what the Steelers need right now. And yeah, he'd probably be good enough, but I just don't think that he'd bring you even to the level of Russ. And I think that's what the Steelers need is, they need a Russ as a backup or a starter. I think Russ is a very good security blanket that would be hard to replace even with a Ryan Tannehill.
Which team's training camp is Ryan Tannehill practicing in right now?
Yeah, the nobody's.
Exactly, his couch. So I think that tells you all you need to know right now about Ryan Tannehill. I understand. Yeah. There's the connection, right? There's the easy connection, but let's get a little bit more creative than, oh, well, he worked with Arthur Smith before and he's available. Oh, maybe this will work. No, yeah. Ryan Tannehill is a free agent because he is a free agent and because right now he is not a top 64 quarterback in the NFL. So nobody's signed him. There's a reason for that. I'm not trading away Russ to get Tannehill at all.
Yeah, I agree. I like Ryan Tannehill. I think Ryan Tannehill as a third would have been a great option. As a two, like you have a good one too. I just don't think it's worth messing up. I don't know if you have a good one. You have to figure it out. But I think right now you have two good twos, and you could make something work. I believe if you could figure out the offensive line. But week 3, all I'm looking for is a touchdown, man. Somebody scores a touchdown, I'd feel pretty good about the situation. And to be honest, like that goes to the offensive line. The offensive line's got to hold up so that they could score a touchdown. But I'm looking for that too. I'm more concerned about the offensive line than the quarterback battle. I want the offensive line to at least give somebody a shot. If not, you better be Adam Sandler and the Gridiron Gang, and you better make something happen because, quite frankly, your offensive line isn't doing you any favors. They're hurting you, if anything. You gotta go win this. You gotta go win this. All right, that's all I got. Unless you got something different, you got a quarterback. What are you looking for?
Well, the thing about just scoring a touchdown, obviously there's the asterisks, and I know you're talking about it, and I know it's in the back of your mind, is if they get a 168-yard touchdown pass, that doesn't count for me, right? Because there could be a blown coverage, something, whatever. I want to see somebody execute. And to execute, I want to see them execute a long drive, 10, 12 plays. Actually, you know what? Considering what we saw last week, give me a 6 or 7 play drive first, and then see somebody be able to command the offense. And again, it all goes back to the entire offense has to perform. And that's all things that you have to include in this evaluation is, well, did Broderick Jones have a better day? Did the whole offensive line have a better day? Were the receivers able to separate a little bit in Detroit more than they were against the Bills? This all goes into it. But again, I want to see somebody drive the ball down and execute well through a couple of drives. And that's the person I'm going to give the job to. Obviously, I think that Wilson would have to perform poorly and then Fields perform well, because I think that's where they're at right now. And that's not me based on what I would do. That is based on what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing. It sounds like Wilson would need to falter and Fields would need to flourish in order for that to be flip-flopped by week 1.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I mean, I apologize if I did not emphasize that enough to everybody else. Nick, I know you fully understand my grasp of that situation, but that is like, I am still very much so on the train of here's Russell Wilson. Here's Justin Fields. Like this is not a real quarterback competition, but Justin Fields has every opportunity to make a one every single week. He's got to do a ton. He's got to do so much more than Russell Wilson, but obviously that option is always there. As anybody who's not named Mason Rudolph, we've named Mason Rudolph. I've said that name too many times today. anybody who's not named Mason Rudolph in Pittsburgh always has an opportunity to do something here. Okay. So Justin Fields has something, but I still agree with you. This is a Russell Wilson job until Russell Wilson loses that job. All right. That's all I got on my agenda today. As we do every single day, we're going to answer all your guys' questions. So if you have more of them, drop them in the chat. We are 3 days away from preseason number 3, which is wild to think that the regular season comes after that. Football season is finally freaking here. With that said, what do we got?
Let's go to Peter Swistock, who just wants some reiteration here. Is Roman Wilson still guaranteed to make the roster, even if he starts the season on injured reserve?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Without question. Yes. You're not getting rid of a 3rd round pick who looked good, who has a ton of upside, but again, 3rd round pick. You would have to be so bad to get cut as a 3rd round pick. So the answer is no, or is yes. He is guaranteed to make the roster.
Let's go to the next question, which is, why are we expecting our offense to magically be good with so many new pieces being added on the field and to the staff? It's going to take some time, more time than training camp and 3 preseason games. Preaching patience for this offense.
Yeah, I hope it doesn't take more than 3 preseason games, but I will say this. There's nothing about the preseason that makes me think that the Steelers are going to stink in the regular season, because this is the preseason, and there are a couple things here, okay? I think the biggest one is that one bad game does not mean there's 2 bad games, and one bad game and 1.5 bad quarters, which is where the Steelers are right now. If you accumulate everything, I think the offensive line collectively as starters played 3 full quarters at this point, 3.5 full quarters, and that doesn't include Isaac Seumalo or Troy Fautanu. And for half of that, Nate Herbig played. So it's early, and there's not a ton of meshing time. And I think that meshing time has to happen by week 1. But this is the time to say, hey, this is the issues. Let's fix the issues. People have to remember, this is the NFL. These are NFL players. They do much more than just show up on Saturday and play a preseason game. They work all week long, not just to practice. You're not just going out there. To be honest with you, the least amount of work gets done on the practice field. Most of it gets done in meetings. Most of it gets done in position group meetings. You are constantly looking at how to adjust and change and fix the issues that I have faith that they could and that they probably will, but I put nothing in there, and I agree with you. I hope it's not more than 3 preseason games, but I think it's way too early to start freaking out.
Let's go to another question here, a special teams question at that. How excited are you guys for an actual NFL caliber punter in Cameron Johnston? Gives me comfort knowing our offense will be subpar, but we at least have a field position game.
It's wild that if that was a regular season game, Cameron Johnston would have set a record for average punt yards in a game. That was nuts. 63, I think, 62 and a half. It was something crazy like that. Dude's a monster. I'm excited. I love a good punter. I love a good punter with a good personality. I love a good punter with a good personality and who's ready to rock somebody on the sidelines and then get chippy afterwards. Cameron Johnston marks every box. I'm pumped. I love that the Steelers have a good kicking unit.
Let's go over to Marlon's question next, which is, are you starting to feel like this could turn into previous years where the Steelers start out slow and pick up as the year goes on? And if so, wouldn't that be a terrible outlook based on the late schedule?
Yeah, no. I don't know if it'd be a terrible outlook based on the late schedule. You had me up until the end there, because if the Steelers are hot at the end of the season, I don't really care who they're playing. You know, the Kansas City Chiefs are one thing. The rest of the NFL, I don't really care, you know, because last year the Eagles stunk at the end of the season. So maybe the Eagles stink at the end of this season. Maybe the Steelers are the hot team. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are the hot team at the end of last season. It's all about momentum and when you pick it up. And honestly, the rule of thumb I always grew up on was it's better to be hot at the end than it is at the beginning, because chances are you're going to carry that momentum into the playoffs. If you start hot, get slow, chances are you end up with the Philadelphia Eagles last year. You don't want that. So I think there's a chance that they start slow, get better as the year goes on. I'm not super worried about it if that happens.
Let's go to Chris's question next. Appreciate you as always.
Chris, man, what a crazy one here.
This is a crazy thought, but just imagine J.J. Watt and Aaron Donald signing 1-year contracts with the Steelers. Just the thought makes me excited.
That would be nuts, man. That would be nuts. You might as well call Antonio Brown and Ben Roethlisberger and get them all out of retirement and just form a super team. It'd be crazy. Would it happen? No. I think there's a better shot J.J. Watt comes back than Aaron Donald. From what I've heard, and obviously, like J.J., you get some news and you get some word of mouth from him. But Aaron Donald, you know everything that's happening with Aaron Donald. He still lives in Pittsburgh, and this is his home, and he practices here, and you're literally right next door to Pitt's facility. You're in the same building, so you hear everything. Aaron Donald is as comfortable with life right now as he has ever been. He is enjoying retirement to the fullest, and not by going out and balling out, by simply just living a good life and enjoying his days. And I think it's a better shot JJ comes back, but man, that would be as epic comes. You might as well call James Harrison and get him on the outside too, because I bet you he could still play some football.
Let's go over to Eugene's question next, which is how much should the easier schedule to start the season play into the Steelers quarterback competition? They need to know what they have in Fields. Starting when the schedule gets insane, isn't that setting him up to fail?
No, it's not. I disagree with the first part of this is they need to know what they have in Fields. They don't need to know what they have in Fields. To be totally honest, if the Pittsburgh Steelers moved on from Justin Fields without ever giving him an opportunity, nobody should be upset about that, because that just means Justin Fields didn't earn that opportunity, and the Steelers aren't going to waste their time with somebody who they don't feel earned that opportunity. It'd be the same thing if Kenny Pickett was here. I get it. Justin Fields has a ton of upside and people are super excited about him. And I think I'm pro Justin Fields. Like, I think I edge myself on the side of Justin Fields in this quarterback competition over Russell Wilson. But if Russ gets the starting job and never loses it, I don't care about Justin Fields and what Justin Fields can and cannot do. I don't think you have to know what you have in him. And when it comes to the back half of the season, it's the same thing here. If Justin goes out there, he's done this already, and this should not be an easement period. There shouldn't have to be one. Like if Justin went out there in week one and that week one game was against Kansas City, people would expect Justin to beat Justin in week one against Kansas City. So it doesn't matter when he starts. There's in my head, like if you are not capable of stepping into the heat and taking on the fire, you can't do this. So you have to be able to do it.
Eugene has another quarterback question here saying, if Tomlin is stubborn enough to play Russell and he fails, does that put the hot seat on Tomlin, and does he end up getting fired because of it?
Tomlin would never get fired. Tomlin will never get fired in Pittsburgh. It will never happen. He is here until he doesn't want to be here or until his contract runs out and the Pittsburgh Steelers decide, look, it's time to go in a different direction, at which case he will likely announce his semi-retirement or something to make it cordial. But he's here till he doesn't want to be here. I have a hard time they'd even let a contract expire and move on. He's here till he doesn't want to get here.
Let's go to Peter's question next. He says, is there any chance that John Rice Plumlee makes the 53-man roster?
No. Unfortunately, no. It would be awesome. I think if he took one to the house, maybe. But no, I don't see it happening.
Let's go over to Thomas next. They said that about Russell Wilson because we already went to this one. Let's go to John's next, who wants to know, considering how we started this show, what is your favorite beef jerky?
My favorite beef jerky is Target has, I don't know who they're by, but I get it. It's like all natural beef jerky, grass fed. It's like sweet pepper or pineapple teriyaki. It's fantastic. Would highly recommend it. It's super soft. It's not real chewy. It's real good.
Let's go to Luke Cage next, who says, any news on the wide receivers that are possibly on the trade block right now that the Steelers could be looking at?
Right now, I don't see any outside of Brandon Ayuk. CeeDee Lamb, I think, is the next possibility for them. But right now, I think it's quiet. They're going to wait. There's going to be names. Jahan Dotson might be on the list soon. Treylon Burks might be on the list soon. There will be names that pop up in the next week that the Steelers will try to make a move for. Tuesday's deadline, 4 p.m. I expect moves to be made right around then for another wide receiver. All right, before we dive into this next question, we will answer everybody, so don't worry out. But first, we got a word from our boys over at Game Time. Let's talk about Game Time. I could still taste the popcorn and the soda and smell the beer of my first Pittsburgh Steelers game. And yeah, the Jacksonville Jaguars might have won that day, but I will never forget how loud Heinz Field was and how rocking that stadium was on the North Shore. Game Time has this new feature called Game Time Picks that makes things like getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I have an upcoming concert in Cleveland the day after the Pittsburgh Steelers play against the Browns, and instead of sitting there clicking on every single section, I'm just going to use Game Time Picks. Let's talk about why it's so great. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. On top of that, you get all-in pricing, which means that you get the total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. On top of that, you get seat views because nobody wants to buy some nosebleed seats for cheap and take a guess on whether you're staring at a pole or you just got the greatest deal in the entire venue. Plus, the lowest price guaranteed, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Game Time ticket coverage means that your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code ALLSTEELERS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code ALLSTEELERS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, low prices, guaranteed. Shout out our boys over at Game Time. All right, what do we got?
Let's go to Thomas McDonald's question next. He wants to know, why can't the Steelers use Calvin Austin in the slot till Roman's back? Juju was not able to get open in New England.
I think Calvin Austin is a starter in the slot either way, whether Roman's here or not. It's just about a backup. It's about another guy, another option. They're going to use a lot of slot options in this offense. Scotty Miller would be the backup right now, but I think Juju provides another depth piece that could block, which I think is very important, and is physical, which I also think is very important in this offense. So it's not about starting. Calvin Austin's going to start either way. It's just about having a backup option. I think Juju provides some good depth.
Bill says the Steelers need Beanie Bishop to perform well. That way the defense can score for that team. Do you think Beanie Bishop holds that much weight right now for the Steelers defense?
Yeah, I think right now he does. But to be honest with you, he's got to have a performance in Detroit for him to start this season and see the field really at all. Like, I don't think that the Steelers are going to walk in after Beanie's first two preseason performances and say he's the starter, he's going to be the guy. Beanie's looked good in the training camp. He's looked really bad in the preseason, so he's got to step up. This is a massive week for him. I think he makes the roster either way. I don't think he's a starter where we stand right now. I know he's listed as one, but I don't think he's a starter in week one where we stand. He could change that with a good performance here, but he's got to have one.
Let's move over to Steelers Freak for Life, who says, how would you separate the reps between Russell Wilson and Justin Fields against the Lions?
I would try to understand what the Lions are going to do. If the Lions are going 4 series of starters, 2 Russ, 2 Justin. If the Lions are going first half starters, first quarter Russ, second quarter Justin. I believe Russ will get the start in this game, but I would want Justin Fields to get reps against the first team defense, against Detroit's defense in this game. Certainly, I want Russ to get them too, and I want as equal of an opportunity for both of these guys as possible.
Let's go to C. Watts, who says, looking back, do you think the Steelers should have kept Deontay Johnson, drafted a corner, and signed Kirk Cousins?
Wow, that's
a lot.
So much. That's so many things to happen. I don't think they should have kept Deontay Johnson. I'm a big fan of the Dante Jackson trade. I get it. A wide receiver holds more weight than a corner, but I like where they go, and I think that they still have options at wide receiver, and they can make it work, and I trust that they might make it work. Might is a big word here. When it came to drafting a corner, I didn't really like the corners. There was a pretty big fall off after like a Kool-Aid McKinstry right there at the end of the first round. You know, a Cooper DeJean would have been awesome, but to be honest with you, I was shocked that he fell into the second round. Never saw it happening. And I like Troy Fautanu and I like Zach Frazier, so I'm not upset about either of those guys. And Kirk Cousins, I mean, that would have been awesome. I don't think the Steelers could afford Kirk Cousins. I don't even think that they were in on Kirk Cousins. It would have been great. I think if you just traded for Justin Fields in the beginning of all this and didn't sign Russ, it also would have worked out. But I like that they signed Russ too. I think both of them work out fine. I would say no to all these. I think you got to give it time. Give it time. You got to let it work out. Nothing's perfect, but if Troy Fautanu and Zach Frazier turn into absolute studs and you get something out of Justin Fields or Russell Wilson, nobody cares at all. And if you land Brandon Ayuk, nobody cares at all. So it's still a waiting game. Hindsight's 50-50, or hindsight's 20-20, excuse me. But I believe that there's still a lot of potential for this to work out in the Steelers' favor.
Let's go over to Kevin's question next. He wants to know, not the Steelers related, but are you excited that Martavis Bryant is back in the league? Hoping he balls out with the Washington Commanders.
I mean, I hope so too. Martavis, from what I've heard, is a nice dude. I've never met him, unfortunately. He was gone from Pittsburgh by the time I got here, but I've heard good things about him. I heard he's a nice dude. I wish him nothing but the best. I'm glad that he's back in the league and glad that he's getting an opportunity. And we'll see what happens. I mean, if anything, it gives the Washington Commanders a reason not to go after Brandon Ayuk, and that's a good thing.
Let's go to It's Dez, who says, fantasy draft is coming up. Which Steelers are you or have you grabbed off the board in your draft, and what round?
Yeah, so my fantasy draft is always Labor Day. Big fan of the Labor Day drafts. That means that, we used to do it earlier, and then guys would get hurt, and you're kicking yourself, and I'm the commissioner, which means I got to deal with everybody complaining all the time. Steelers, I'm grabbing off the board. Najee Harris is a big one. I'd take him 3rd round, 4th round, depending on how loaded the running backs are in your draft league and how quickly they go off the board. Pat Fryermuth's a sleeper. I think you could get him middle to late rounds, and I think he's worth it 100%. I'd go George Pickens. I don't know if I'd go George Pickens 1st round. I might go George Pickens 2nd round. I might feel confident in George Pickens 2nd round. I'd feel really good about him in the 3rd round. I'd feel very good about him in the 3rd round. And if you're looking for really late sleepers, Jaylen Warren, you could probably get in the middle of the draft. If somebody takes him earlier, they're taking too big of a shot on him. You could let him have him. Calvin Austin would be the other one. I think you could get him super late, super late. And I think he's got potential to do some big things in this offense.
Me247 says, where do you believe the Steelers rank in the AFC right now?
I'd have to sit down and really look at it all, but you gotta just to put them right in the middle of the pack. They're probably around the Kansas City, Baltimore, Houston Texans are all in. I guess you could still toss Buffalo in there. I think you still have to toss Buffalo in there, right? Or right in that one category. Mm-hmm. 2 is probably Jacksonville,
Miami,
Cleveland. I think Cincinnati, if Cincinnati's healthy. And I think the Steelers are right in there. I think the Steelers have an opportunity to be right in that mix. Worst case, they're in tier 3, but right at the top of tier 3. But I think they're right in the mix of tier 2, maybe them, Cincy, Cleveland, or even Jacksonville, are all right in the mix. I think Miami might be ahead of them, but I think they're all right in the mix in tier 2.
And let's go to this one next. Which player on offense do you think will score the first touchdown of the regular season?
Oh, this is a tough one. I think the easy answer, we'll go easy, medium, hard. Easy would be Najee Harris. That would be the easy answer. Medium would be Pat Fryermuth. That would be my medium answer. Hard. I think hard, I'm going to go Minkah Fitzpatrick because I just look at, man, you start off on the defensive side of the football. Kirk Cousins is out there. Kirk Cousins throws a pick. He gets sacked. Ball comes out. Chances are Minka's going to be the guy there picking it up. So I would say easy, medium, hard there. Some honorable mentions: George Pickens, Jaylen Warren, Darnell Washington.
I had to double check last year because I couldn't remember if the Steelers scored a touchdown in week 1 or not. They did. It was Pat Fryermuth, but I was like, if it wasn't a touchdown in week 1, the first touchdown would have been Alex Highsmith in week 2. So unfortunately, it wasn't that, but still.
But 2 is close. 2 is very
close.
close. So I'm telling you, I think it could be there.
As far as a long shot, I'd throw Connor Hayward out there too. He could
Connor
just
Hayward's a good
find
one.
his way out there and then just catch a dump pass in the flat.
Yeah.
One guy whiffs his tackle, or he makes one guy miss like he did against the Bills when he jumped over a guy. That could be a long shot. And if you're a betting man, then there's probably pretty good odds on Connor Hayward.
Crazy odds. Let me it is wild, and you guys will all start paying attention to this now. Connor Hayward is the least athletic football player on the field when he's out there, but he could jump over somebody better than anybody else on that football field. Like anybody, offensively, both teams, nobody hurdles somebody like Connor Hayward. So shout out to Connor Hayward.
Let's go over to Austin's question next, wanting to know, what do you think the odds are that both Darius Rush and Corey Trice end up making the Steelers' 53-man roster?
I think right now are high. I hope the Steelers call somebody to try and sign someone, because I don't believe that the Steelers roster is set. I don't think they have enough at corner. I believe that you have to add somebody right now. I think Patrick Peterson's a good move. I just don't think Beanie Bishop could start in the slot, and I don't think that you have a good outside third option, because Corey Trice and Darius Rush just aren't it for me right now. So I think you have to call somebody. That changes things. I don't know if Darius Rush is on the roster at that point, but right now I would say yes.
And let's finish it off with Luke Cage, who says, Noah, do you have any predictions for the Detroit game this Saturday?
Touchdowns. I predict the offense scores at least one touchdown, but I would imagine it's more than one. I think this is the game that things get fixed. The Pittsburgh Steelers, not everything gets fixed and not everything's perfect, but the Pittsburgh Steelers bring some light. I'm excited for Monday so that we could talk about they look good, and maybe we could stop freaking out now. That's what I'm looking for on Monday, but I predict touchdowns and a win, but touchdowns.
I'll predict there's at least one pancake from Broderick Jones, because he's going to be amped up to kind of show everybody and prove everybody wrong. So I'm going to say Broderick has a pretty good game in Detroit on Saturday.
Yeah, I agree. And he plays a lot of left tackle. I think he plays a lot of left tackle in Detroit. So
who plays right? Spencer? Anderson?
No, I think maybe Dan Moore Jr. plays some right tackle.
Interesting.
Just tossing it out there. It's my prediction for the game. All right, guys. Is that all we got?
That is a wrap. Yep.
Awesome. With that said, guys, we are heading out of here. Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcast. And as always, please find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. We will be back tomorrow. Enjoy another beautiful day in the Berg. Peace.